Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, and other assorted gender assignations. Welcome back to the Bored to Death Bingecast, where we take TV shows and movies and binge them in easily digestible chunks. I am Jay Winger, being joined by
Chris.
And we're not being joined by the others today. They aren't really that interested in binging what we're doing today, which is Season 1 of Netflix's Castlevania. Another animated adaptation of a video game that we grew up with.
I sort of grew up with it. I didn't own a copy. If I wanted to play it, I had to go to somebody else's house.
Same here. I had to either borrow it from a friend or rent it from Blockbuster. That should tell you how old I am. And truth be told, Castlevania games weren't my favorite, but I recognize how important they are in terms of video games, because it spawned a whole genre of video games in the Metroidvania.
Well,
style.
I don't think it gets as much recognition as what they should in terms of games. The games, I don't know how the current ones are, but if we go back to, the first 2 or 3, they're hard.
Yeah.
They are hard.
That was when video games weren't just hard, they were Nintendo hard. When you didn't have continues.
Oh, yeah.
When there weren't necessarily passwords that allowed you to skip to later levels. Some of them had that.
Mega Man
was the main one. But not all of them. And that's why, we liked reading stuff like Nintendo Power, because it would give us tips on how to beat some of this stuff.
See, unfortunately, I'm one of those guys that did not grow up reading Nintendo Power. I didn't get my first Nintendo Power issue till I was in high school.
Okay. But... yeah, that was the thing. Everybody was just sort of like, I found this cheat code that will give you 30 extra lives, which was really important when you were playing those sorts of video games.
I think probably one of the harder games was, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this, was Ninja Gaiden.
Ninja Gaiden, yeah, that was. And then when they finally did a 3D remake or 3D update of it, it was also ridiculously hard.
Oh, yeah. Again, I honestly have never played those games either, but I'm familiar with them.
And with Castlevania, I know one of the later games, Symphony of the Night, is the one I think that a lot of people hold up as being one of the best of the Castlevania games. I think it was still one of the 2D ones. It was before it got into some of the
more
3D,
recent ones
platforming.
The more recent ones have gone back to the old school style where it's the side
proper Metroidvania style.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like the 64 versions of the games that were coming out, which were also a hard pain in the ass.
But Netflix's Castlevania, I know has 3 seasons now, I think. Well, we got it right here. Let's pull it up real quick.
Yeah, it's got 3 seasons right now.
3 seasons of 4, 8, and 10 episodes. We're only doing season 1 today. Looks like they're your basic half hour episodes.
Yep. 23 to 25.
28, I think. Yeah, with basically the sort of stuff that would have been on your average TV, although probably not for kids.
Now,
because it's blood and violence. And
definitely because, I don't know if you ever saw this or not, but do you remember that bootleg Power Ranger fan video that came out a few years back?
I do vaguely remember.
The guy who did that video was involved with this show.
I do seem to recall hearing about that.
He was also...
one of the things that sort of put it on my radar, but for various reasons I never got around to watching.
He was also... I think he was the executive producer for Dread.
Okay, now you have definitely got my interest, because you know I like Dread. I know you like Dread too.
Oh, yes.
Please make the Dread TV series already. Netflix, make it happen, please.
Definitely.
But so that's about it for this intro, I think. Unless
another thing is that I don't know a lot of the monsters from the games. So if they are in this series, besides Dracula,
same here. I'm not gonna really know. We're not really gonna know the names of all these.
Let us know which of the monsters from the games actually made their animated debut in this.
Yeah, you can always just put it in the comments if you want to correct us about the names of some of this stuff. It's the only thing I really can know going in about this is Dracula and the Belmonts.
Yes.
Simon Belmont, I think, was the first one, and various other members of the Belmont
Alucard's
family.
in this too.
Alucard, the Dracula's son with the backwards name.
Yeah.
Because that's just one of those tropes when it comes to vampires now. They always like to sort of sneak in the backwards spelling of their names.
Yeah, just about. But that was also done during the Universal Pictures.
That's true.
Monster movies back in the 30s. So, anyways, let's get started.
Yep, we'll see you after the binge. Okay, and we're back, having finished season 1 of Castlevania on Netflix. If you haven't seen the series, spoilers from this point forward. But I definitely did like it. Obviously, not being too familiar with the series, I can't say everything about what it was adapted from and what it wasn't. But you looked it up.
Yeah, I was kind of curious because I didn't know if this was an original story or if it was based off any of the games. And season 1, for the most part, is based off of Castlevania 3. And parts of characters from seasons 2 and 3, they were taken from or borrowed from or whatever. They are from Curse of Darkness.
Okay, I'm not familiar about all the games, obviously. So.
Yeah, but if you're a fan, you'll know where they come from.
Yeah, but they did give us at least a bit of an origin story for why shit's all fucked up in the series.
Yeah.
The prologue featured a woman named Lisa going to visit Dracula because she wants to become a doctor so she can help the people. Dracula's initially not impressed, but she does end up impressing him with her forthrightness about the fact.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, I'm not really a believer in, magic, or not necessarily magic, but like at the time where this show is taking place, a lot of people, like, there really weren't any doctors.
Yeah, it was set in, like, the prologue at the very least was 1455.
Yeah,
that should tell you how far back we're talking.
So at that point in time, a lot of people were believing in, like pray, they let their belief try to be the thing that healed them for whatever ailed them, not thinking
and
at the
superstitions and stuff like that.
Yeah, she knew. I guess she was just like, one of those people who was just like, this doesn't really work.
And so she was a woman of science.
Yes.
And Dracula, being an immortal, has the science of the immortals, which is basically future tech.
Yeah. Look at his castle.
Yeah.
Which doesn't even look like a traditional castle, by the way. It doesn't. It doesn't really look like the way it was portrayed in, like, the original games, where if you've seen the intro, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, she came to him saying, I want to take what I know and use your knowledge, your technology, and combine that together to help people. And he was like, okay, let's do this.
And she convinced him also to travel the world as a man, see the world as a man, rather than sitting in his castle lording it up like an immortal vampire. And then everything went wrong. They had like 20 years together, where she evidently married him and
conceived a son.
If
you are familiar with the games, the son is Alucard.
It's called Alucard. Yep.
Not the one from Helsing.
The one from Helsing is basically is actually Dracula. He just goes by Alucard instead. But regardless, 20 years after she meets Dracula, they burn her at the stake as a witch.
Yes, because they think that, all the stuff that she does is witchcraft, because
what is this science stuff? People just need to trust in the word of God.
Exactly. So, like, when they were burning her at the stake, the bishop was talking to one of the priests. He was like,
the mayor of the town,
and he was like, there were roots in there were plants, there were these potions in there was all this witchcraft stuff that was in there in her house or whatever the hell it was she was in
Lupu.
And so they apparently took her, burned her at the stake.
And she
was begging Dracula to not do anything. She was
and granted, it was something like right out of the forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. Only instead of saying forgive them, Father, it's more like forgive them, my husband.
Yeah. So.
And yeah, he wasn't there, didn't hear it, and he basically goes Super Saiyan.
Yeah, when he finds out what happened, because what was it? He went back to He
went back to her village.
To her village to find her, sees that her house has basically been burned down to the ground, talks to one of the village people there, she tells him everything that happens, and he basically goes, oh hell no, and then goes to
Targa Vista,
where they had burned her at the stake, and basically told them, you have 1 year to make peace with your god.
And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to kill you all. If you don't want to die, get out of Wallachia.
Yeah. So it shows him, doing whatever in his castle.
He's summoning an army. It's going to take him a year to pull it off.
Yeah. And of course his son is like, I'm grieving with you.
I mean, I get where your grief is coming from, but this is a bad idea. Please don't do this.
Exactly. But he goes through with it anyways, and, well, if you kind of know your Dracula history, then you know who Vlad the Impaler was. That's pretty much what it looks like when...
He unleashes a demonic horde on Targa Vista, summons his castle there, and sets up shop.
No, see, and it's also what he does before he brings his castle there. Like, other than, you see a giant fiery version of his head coming out of the clouds, basically of him saying, I gave you a year to make peace with your god.
And what are you doing? You're celebrating the fact that you killed my wife.
Yeah. So, not only does he light a church, or not even a church, it was a cathedral.
He basically, boom, and just detonates it.
But his castle is right where the cathedral once was, so that was a huge middle finger right there.
Yep. And it's, the whole thing, rain of blood. It's raining fire from the skies. The demons.
It's a Slayer music video.
Yeah.
It is a straight up Slayer music video. If you could set it to Slayer's Raining Blood, actually somebody do that.
Yes.
To Slayer's Raining Blood, then it literally goes very well with that song. But anyways, so yeah, the whole, almost the entire, like a whole town gets...
Targa Vista basically gets annihilated.
Massacred, and then he orders, like, all these demons spread out all over the countryside to other city.
Every other city, and he lists them all, but, kill them all.
Kill everybody. And then after that, it skips to a little
village
somewhere.
And we meet the main protagonist.
Who is Trevor Belmont, not Simon... Not any other ones, but Trevor Belmont. And
that's the scene where I finally noticed the writing style of Warren Ellis, because that was the thing I hadn't been aware of going into this, was that Warren Ellis wrote the series. I've read some of his comics. I've read Transmetropolitan, which can have some pretty fucked up stuff in there, but it's...
Is it as bad as Preacher?
I haven't read a whole lot of Preacher, so I
can't really say. They had to water it down for the show.
Yeah, well, that's Garth Ennis. Garth Ennis and Warren Ellis are two peas in a pod kind of thing when it comes to that. But it was the conversation between the two yokels in the pub talking about goats and stuff. I was like, okay, that's like straight up Warren Ellis writing style stuff there.
Probably the funniest line during that whole conversation was, so I hit him in the face between the eyes with a shovel, and then he went blind afterwards. And then they were blaming me for that, and I was like, well, do you think it's because he had sex with a goat?
But anyway, Trevor is just sort of chilling there in the bar, getting drunk, and then, unfortunately, the yokels start getting angry about the fact that it's all these great houses, all these rich people having wars with one another. They don't give a shit about us, and they specifically mention the Belmonts.
Yeah,
and that's when he partly blame the Belmonts for the demons running rampant across the countryside.
And he's sitting there, and when he kind of hears his family name get mentioned, he doesn't really react to it. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't speak up because he's drunk off his ass.
But he has a reaction of just like, shit.
Like, oh, shit, I'm going to need to hurry up and leave.
I had vibes of Geralt from Witcher. Just fuck.
Yeah. So he tries to get himself another drink, and the guy that was telling the goat story sees the emblem on his shirt, which he's trying to keep covered up, by the way. He goes, "Oi, what's that on your chest?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing. It's just an old shirt. It doesn't mean anything."
It doesn't mean anything. He's trying to talk his way out of it.
Yeah, and all he wants is one more drink, you know.
And then he's going to leave. And nope, they decide they want to pick a fight with a guy whose family has been hunting monsters and demons for generations.
Yes. So, little fight breaks out or whatever, and he
gets his ass kicked, but he still wins.
He's drunk off his ass, and like what he said,
he's out of practice.
Yeah.
Because his family, this is another thing, his family got excommunicated, basically.
But they didn't really explain the reason why they got
because the church accused them of using black magic.
Oh, well, how else are you going to fight demons? Well, maybe not really using black magic.
But we don't see Trevor use magic at all. He uses a consecrated whip.
Which is...
And a bunch of knowledge about this is the stuff that kills demons.
Which, as far as I know, in the games, the whip is passed down.
Yeah.
So...
That's true. We can't really speak for what the previous generations may or may not have done. But.
I mean, they could in a future season, maybe if they wanted to, they could do a season based off of Simon. So they could do that. Whether or not that's planned for season 4 or not, because I don't know what happens in season 3, because I haven't watched it yet. But
well, that'll be a thing when we get to that one later.
Exactly.
But, anyway, after the whole fight and that tiny little town, he moves on to Greshit, which is the setting for the rest of season 1, at the very least. And well, let's see. The gates are barricaded. They're not just closed; they're barricaded.
On the inside of it and the outside of it.
Mm-hmm. And so he sneaks his way in through the sewers because
there's always a sewer entrance.
And the city is basically a wreck because it's been attacked every night by the night hordes. All the demons basically come around every night. And he goes around and starts just chatting with some of the locals, and he finds out that there's a tribe of people called speakers in town who are sort of like gypsies, but not exactly.
Gypsies if they were storytellers.
Yes. And they're pacifists, the speakers also. They don't really believe in violence. Or they don't really like having to resort to it. They try to avoid that sort of thing. But they go around collecting stories from all over the country. And we find out later when he speaks with the elder of this particular tribe that sometimes the stories they get are from the future. I don't know how that works, but hey, then again, we do find out that they know magic, so maybe that's where it comes from.
Well, one of them knows magic. They didn't really show the others.
This is true, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But he also hears about a local legend about the sleeping soldier, who
is under the city,
who lives under the city and could possibly be awoken to help save the country, sort of thing. Your typical sort of King Arthur, King under the mountain sort of legend. But while he's going, he meets the speakers when he finds the elder being accosted by a couple of priests. And so Trevor basically steps up and helps save him.
Yeah, he himself is trying not to resort to killing these two priests because they're idiots.
Because they're idiots, and they're not the ones who really had anything to do with his family's situation.
Exactly. So,
but he's just like, you guys are dicks. Stop it.
Yeah.
and when they don't, he takes off one of their fingers and takes an eye out of the other one's head.
All with his whip, by the way.
Yep. And even then, he's just like, I'm out of practice, but I'm stone cold sober. You're gonna get your ass kicked.
Well, the one that pulls a knife on him, and he gets told to basically kill Belmont. Mm-hmm. He's not even trying to do anything to him. He's trying to either disarm him or he's trying to
just basically shove him out of the way.
Yeah.
Dodge and push him away, just like, you don't want to do this.
Yeah. So, like what you said, he uses the whip. Next thing you know, the guy's eye is hanging from a wall.
But then after, he goes and meets with the rest of the tribe, and he finds out that there's one of them is missing. That the one that went missing, the elder's grandchild, went down into the catacombs to try to find the sleeping soldier and the sleeping messiah, whatever you want to call it. And they won't leave the city until they can, at the very least, recover the body.
Yeah.
Because they don't believe in not tending to their dead. And Trevor, meanwhile, doesn't really care about any of this. He just wants to get some food, get some drink, get some more drink, and then possibly some food, and move on. Because he's just like, well, this is where I think they bring up the line about essentially the indifference of good men. That all it takes for evil to succeed is for people to stand aside and let it happen. And Trevor, basically, that's why he doesn't really do a whole lot to help people, because his family got excommunicated. But if the people had spoken up against the church, it might not have happened. But they didn't, so he's like, fuck them.
Well, he does do a lot of shit talking against the church.
Yes, well, not without reason.
Yeah, he's got his reason. It's not like he hates the church. He just hates what happened to his family.
Yeah, but he basically does agree to go find the missing speaker, and that's where episode 3 comes in. He goes into the catacombs, where we have our first boss fight as he fights a stone cyclops.
Yeah, a cyclops that is shooting a beam out of its eye, of course, and everything that this beam touches turns to stone. Like at one point in time,
it catches part of his cape, and
it turns to stone, but he just takes it, breaks it off, and then
he eventually kills it.
Yeah, he eventually kills it. The only way that you can properly kill a cyclops. The first time he tried to kill it was he threw
staked it, essentially.
Yeah, he threw his
dagger.
No, it was a short.
It was his short sword. That's right.
It was a short sword, and it gets lodged into his chest, like almost right where the heart is. He's like, "Come on, just die."
It's just like, this is where you fall down.
Well, it didn't fall down, so he gets it back.
Mm-hmm.
Twirls it in the air a little bit, kicks it, and then it goes in straight into the creature's eye.
And it finally collapses. And because he killed the Cyclops, it restores everything that got turned to stone, including the speaker, who was a girl. Because of course you have to have a female protagonist in there somewhere.
Yeah, but then again, I'm pretty sure that to the head of the speakers, it didn't really matter what the gender was.
This is true.
I want my grandkid back. And of course, after she turns back, they talk a little bit. He leaves. She kind of like hangs out around for
she lingers for a moment and turns around and sees the other bodies that had been turned to stone and then had been shattered, turning back to flesh and blood, and just blood.
Yeah,
it's a great little spot there. But he goes back to the speakers, and it's just like, okay, you've got your missing member back. You need to get out of the city, because the people here are blaming you for what happened, and they're going to kill you. And the speakers don't want to leave because, actually, no. She goes back to the rest of the speakers. He ends up gets caught by the priests and taken to go see the bishop. The same bishop who burned Dracula's wife.
Who was also voiced by Matt Frewer.
Mm-hmm. And basically, the bishop still firmly believes in his faith, and that, if the people had trusted more in the word of God, this wouldn't have happened. That woman was a witch; she deserved to die. And the word of God will protect me, protect everyone. And he basically says Trevor, get out of town. You have until sundown. And if you're still in town after that, you die.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically says, if you do this, then maybe we can talk about restoring your family's place within the church, sort of thing, reversing the excommunication. Trevor's just sort of like, you're just a bishop. The order for the excommunication came from a little bit higher.
That's what I was like.
The Pope? Well, and then the bishop just basically says, the other cities let the other cities die. I'll be here in Gresham. I'll essentially be the church, because he's still just a man, a miserable pile of secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And so Trevor goes back to the speakers. Is like, you need to leave. You need to leave because the mob is gonna come and they're gonna kill you all because they think that this will save them. And well, they refuse to leave. They're like, they'll face their fate because it's the right thing to do to stand up for themselves. And then it's as the sun starts setting, as the night horde starts to come, and the mob arrives with the torches and pitchforks and everything. Speakers aren't there. Trevor sent them down into the catacombs for safety.
And that led to one of like the comedic moments, because the Cyclops' body is still there.
One of the speakers. That's right. Just like
one of the speakers just kind of looks at it and goes, "I think I saw it move."
But so Trevor faces off against the priests and the mob, and is just like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna let you kill them." And so that leads into the final episode of the season, as he leads a merry chase through the city until they finally have him cornered in like the town square. But Sypha, the speaker girl that he saved in the catacombs, turns out she knows magic.
Yeah, and she creates like a nice little circle of flames around him to protect him. She starts throwing like
fireballs and ice around,
and she creates a path for him to walk down. And as he's walking down this path, he looks over.
There's the priest that he took the finger off.
Yeah, there's the asshole priest, and he looks at him. He goes, "I want you, just me and you, 1-on-1. You're so good at telling other people to kill for you.
Let's see if you can do it yourself."
Yeah, and then he starts asking the people, like, have you ever seen a priest pull a knife on anyone before?
Have you ever seen a priest threaten an old man?
Yeah, so he starts...
And he basically tells exactly what's going on, that your bishop is the same bishop that killed Dracula's wife, that brought this down on your heads.
Yeah, so... of course, he gets the entire town to kill.
The mob basically turns on the asshole priest.
Yeah, which is just like one of those moments where if this was in a movie theater, everyone would go, "Woo!" Yeah,
but since we're just watching this in the privacy of our own home, we're not really going to do that sort of thing. We're just like, yeah, all right, cool. But after that happens, the Night Horde shows up. Oh, I forgot to mention the Night Horde, because episode 4 opened with them paying a visit to the bishop.
Oh, yes.
And they basically broke him.
Literally. In more ways than one, they broke him spiritually and then physically.
Well, they didn't really break him physically so much as they chewed his head off and then drank his blood.
Pretty much. Well, you don't really see it, but you hear it.
Yeah, you hear a lot of slurping noises.
And a little bit of chewing at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But he's
an asshole victim. You don't really feel sorry for him.
Yeah, you really don't, especially when you watch the first episode. But
the first episode and episode 3, where he's basically like, "Let them all die. I'll be the one in charge afterwards." Yeah, typical greed and pride there.
Oh yeah, and he what was it when he was trying to tell these demons to leave, like, "Oh, this is a house of God,"
and it's like, it's an empty box.
And so the demon basically ends up winning the whole conversation, like your God, you make your God puke, is what he said.
Yeah.
And then he said, the demon was like, God has abandoned you because of what you did. And but he's like, God may not love you, but I love you.
You let us in.
Yeah, and then he goes, "Let me kiss you," and that's when
chomp chomp.
Yeah, that's when he kills the bishop.
But getting back to like the Night Horde, Trevor basically assumes command and basically tells everyone, "Is there an actual consecrated priest of the church here?" And one guy steps forward, it's like, "You take some people, start drawing up buckets of water. You know what to do with water, right?" And tells the guys with like pikes and everything, "I want you guys lined up right here. Anybody get as much salt as you can. Anybody with swords, wipe the swords with salts." And then basically uses his family's knowledge of, here's how you fucking kill demons, to kill the Night Horde. Along with Sypha throwing ice around and everything.
It was, she created like these ice walls that the Night Horde
to funnel the Night Horde down one path so they wouldn't get surrounded.
Yeah, one of the night horde, like one of like the smaller winged demons, tries to lunge at the group, and Trevor goes rear pikes up, and they hold their pikes up, and the demon gets impaled on, and he was like, all right, chop them up, and you see a bunch of the ones that had the swords going over, like one dude slices the demon's legs off, and then they go and they just like completely massacre this one demon.
And then the square sort of collapses underneath Sypha and Trevor.
Yeah.
And they fall into the catacombs, deeper into the catacombs, where they finally find the sleeping Messiah.
Yeah.
After a bit of platforming section. It was literally a platforming section.
They literally added the platforming section from the game,
complete with like the little piston things that you'd have to time your run through.
Yeah, think those asshole piston things from Mega Man 2 in Quick Man Stage.
Oh God!
But if they didn't go back, if they went backwards.
Yes, that was but they finally get to the sleeping Messiah's chamber. Activate the thing, wake him up. Surprise! It's Alucard, who's basically like, so he looks at Trevor. It's like, do you think that I'm the Messiah that's going to save you all? He's like, no, I think you're a vampire, because he could see his fangs.
Yeah.
And so then
plus he's floating.
Yeah, that's another good indicator. And so.
Yeah. Did you notice with the coffin that he was inside of? Did you notice the tanks that were right behind it?
I did notice them. I don't really know much significance to those.
They had blood in them.
Well,
so they were they're meant to keep him alive, or probably keep him subdued. I'm not really sure how they were subduing him.
Well, I don't think it was so much that it was subduing him, so much as that he was injured after his little fight with Dracula at the end of episode 1.
Yeah.
And because we saw the scar on his chest from it. Because he had a pretty nasty looking scar there.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it was more a case of, I need to lay low for a while and recuperate. So that's why he, has been sort of staying underneath the city for a while with tanks of blood to rejuvenate him.
Yeah.
But we have a fight between Trevor and Alucard.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call it a boss fight. It kind of reminded me of in one of the Mega Man games when they introduced Proto Man, and you had to fight him.
Oh yeah.
And then you don't really kill Proto Man in it. You
sort of fight him to a standstill, and then he's like, "All right, peace, I'm out."
Yeah. Well, it kind of the same thing where the standstill comes with Alucard is close enough to bite Trevor's throat, and he's like, I could rip your throat out if I want to. Well,
Simon, or not, keep saying Simon because
it's a Belmont.
It's a Belmont, but Trevor has
like a dagger, and it's in Alucard's chest. Not
yet to the point of staking him, but it's just sort of like, all I have to do is finish pushing.
or Alucard, all he has to do is get a little bit, push himself a little bit more closer in.
And Alucard's even like, I could still rip your throat out.
And he goes, I don't care.
Yeah, he's just like, the point was to kill you. Living afterwards is a luxury.
Exactly. So, they basically convince him to join them to fight.
Or he basically is like, all right, so I think I like you guys. I think you're actually going to be useful to help me stop my father. Because that's when he reveals, by the way, my name is Adrian Tepish. They call me Alucard.
But the villagers call me Alucard, yeah.
And, I am the son of Vlad Dracula Tepish. And he basically says that the full version of the story of the sleeping Messiah said that he would be awakened by a hunter and a scholar. What does he have here? A vampire hunter and a scholar of magic.
And of course, and in season 2, that's when we see them joining forces. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that in a future episode. But I definitely did enjoy this. We'll definitely have to do season 2 at some point. We'll do that in a two-part binge because it's 8 episodes long.
Yeah,
so
4 and 4.
4 and 4, and when we get to season 3, we'll probably do 5 and 5, so that we don't have some sort of weird. Or we could do 3, 3, 4. I don't know. Depends on how we want to handle it.
Yeah.
But I would definitely recommend checking out Castlevania on Netflix if you're a fan of the Castlevania series. Definitely check it out. The animation's pretty high quality.
Oh yeah, it's surprisingly good animation. Like
Well, it has a very anime feel, so it's fine saying anime.
Yeah, because if you look at it, like the scene where Trevor is in the catacombs and he hasn't come across a Cyclops yet, but he comes across a torch. If you look at the scene, and if you're a fan of old school Scooby Doo,
well, just old school cartoons in general,
the little the item on the wall, that's the one that the character or whoever is going to interact with, is the only thing
that is properly animated, not just a painting.
Yeah, properly animated and not painted on.
Yeah, he and I both noticed that. We're just like, yeah, that's some like old school Western style animation.
Actually, what's funny is in the Scooby Natural episode of Supernatural,
they had that.
they make that as a joke in the episode, and it's done by Dean.
I really do need to check out that episode at some point, but that's, who knows? Maybe we'll make that a mini binge.
One episode mini binge.
One episode mini binge, but that's for another day. But yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. For anybody who's listening, if you're a fan and if you've seen all 3 seasons,
no spoilers in the comments, please.
Yeah, no spoilers yet. And another thing is, if they have not introduced any of the monsters that you liked, or any of the bosses or whatever from the games that have not been introduced yet, which ones do you want to see?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Because one thing that I want to see, I don't really know how they would bring the character in, is Death.
That's true. Death was one of the bosses you had to fight in one of the Castlevania.
One of the other monsters that you had to fight, if I remember correctly.
That was always weird to me. It's like you're fighting Death, but he's not the final boss. How does that work?
Well, Dracula.
I know, but still.
I mean, it's like saying Dr. Wily in Mega Man. It's like not making him the final boss, which he almost was in one of the games.
No, every single game he's ended up being the final boss.
Yeah. But
yeah.
One of the other ones that I kind of want to see, I don't really know how they would bring this character in either, is Medusa, because not really one of the bosses, but I think if I remember correctly, one of the enemies that was in the game was like the floating Medusa heads.
Yeah, well, they sort of had that with the stone golem here, or stone Cyclops.
Yeah, but again, I would maybe.
But some sort of floating demon head thing would be a good.
Well, maybe it could be like Medusa created the Cyclops.
There you go. Make Medusa or something like her one of Dracula's chief generals or something for his demon army. And that's another thing. If you're expecting to see more of Dracula in season 1, you're not gonna get it. He's in the first episode and that's it.
Yeah. The first episode is more of introducing Trevor Belmont and Alucard
and establishing why the demons are running amok in Wallachia.
Exactly. Dracula is more prominent in season 2.
Well, because you've now got your power trio for the main characters. Now you can move on and do the rest.
Yeah. Trying to think of one of the other. I don't remember if this particular monster was in the games or not. I think he was, but I believe Frankenstein's monster was in one of the games also.
I want to say you're right, but again, I don't really remember a whole lot about the games. A lot of this stuff is just stuff I've picked up through osmosis from seeing and hearing about the games, and I've read a lot of stuff on TV Tropes, and I'm pretty sure it's popped up on there at some point.
Probably. But I think that was for one of like the older Nintendo.
Yeah, because it's like you've already got Dracula in there. Why not throw in all of the classic movie monsters? Mummies and zombies and stuff like that.
Where the Wolfman. Screw it! Throw the Wolfman in!
Well, they sort of did. The demon that killed the bishop was basically a werewolf. Was very much inspired by a werewolf.
Yeah, you kind of get some Wolfman vibes off of him. But
granted, he has those weird like spikes sort of growing out of his back, and he had multiple eyes. But then again, demon. So, but anyway, I think that about wraps up this edition of the Bingecast. There's not really a whole lot else to talk about.
Well, yeah, it's only 4. Season 1 is only 4 episodes.
Yeah, well, because it was more like they're testing the waters to see if this is going to work. Hey, it did. Great. Season 2 now.
Yes, and it's up to 3 seasons right now, and they had announced season 4.
Excellent. So we'll have some more to binge in the future.
Yes. Oh, and another thing. Any other video game franchises that you would like to see animated also?
Metroid.
Yes, Metroid. We discussed that.
We discussed Metroid. Legend of Zelda.
That's another one.
Now, because granted, it'd be weird to have Link actually talking. Because I remember the old Legend of Zelda cartoon from back in the 80s.
Well, excuse me, princess.
That one, which was really, really... Which nowadays I look back on, it's just... I was like, why did I like this series? But it was dumb fun.
Do you remember when they did the crossover with Captain N?
And the Game Master, yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's another one they could bring back. And kind of like change the tone up, though, would be Captain N, the Game Master.
Nowadays, though, he then, instead of fighting alongside Mario and Mega Man and Simon Belmont and all that, he'd be fighting alongside probably like Master Chief or the Doomslayer.
Or he could be one of those generational type video game
This
players.
is true. Or just set it back in the 80s or early 90s so that those games are still the ones that are out there. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked.
Now, another one of Adi Shankar's upcoming projects, there is no release date for this, but he is apparently planning on doing an animated Assassin's Creed series for Netflix.
Ooh, that makes me so interested.
Now, here's the other thing is, which assassin do you want, or do you want it to be a completely original story?
I would say a completely original story. Because the way they've treated the Assassin's Creed games, the entire Assassin's Creed franchise, is everything is canon.
Yeah.
The games, the comic books, the novelizations, the web animation.
The two movies.
I
mean, 3, technically. The third one is the animated one that takes place before Assassin's Creed China.
Oh, Embers.
Yes.
Embers. Well, that was the one I was talking about because it was released, I think, online. So that's why I called it web animation. But all of it is considered canon. I don't want to see them trying to adapt Ezio. I don't want to see them trying to adapt Altair. Unless you're telling a story about them that is distinct from the games, that can still stand on its own, but doesn't just try to adapt one of their games.
If they were to adapt Altair, I will say this. Show us more of what happened after the events of the first game.
Yes. Because while we got a lot of explanation in Revelations,
it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. It just it skipped through periods in his life.
Because there was something that they showed in Revelations.
I want to see him going on the trip that got him the hidden gun.
Yes, that's what I was about to bring up. Because he was.
I just remember that moment in that game, which is like fire the hidden gun. I was like, oh yes, boom.
But yeah, they are playing on an Assassin's Creed one.
Barring, if not him, Edward Kenway, after the events of Black Flag.
Yes.
Because it's clear he had a lot more adventures after that point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or just give us some completely new assassin. Lord knows there is plenty of history to plunder. We could do an entire podcast just talking about Assassin's Creed. Let's not divert Bingecast. That's a project for a future day. But that I think should wrap up this episode of Bingecast. But so for Chris, I'm Jay. We'll see you next time for our next binge. Time for our next binge.